Wow. Also, you said you came into the Nation of Islam in 1960.
Yes.
And Brother Clarence came into the Nation of Islam in 1960, according to many different reports. And he stayed in the Nation of Islam until late 63 or either early 64, depending on which source you believe. What do you feel were the reasons that he left the temple? Because in my studies, as far as my research as it relates to the book, I've interviewed a few Muslim brothers and sisters in the temple. I interviewed his wife. I interviewed some 5%ers. I interviewed the elders of the 5% community that started with Brother Clarence from the temple out into the streets of Harlem. And everybody basically has given me a different reason.
Okay.
You know, no reason is the same. So from your perspective, what were the reasons that he left the temple?
Well, it's not my perspective. It's what I was told by the captain of the FOI. The captain of the FOI told me, because we were questioning what Clarence was doing, because one particular time when Malcolm was actually set down, he was set down after February the 21st, 1964. He was actually set down. He was suspended from his post, but he still had it on about December the 3rd. Sunday was the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. December the 3rd, 1963. He was suspended from his post because he made a public statement about the death of Kennedy at the December the 1st, 1963 Manhattan Center program. And when Malcolm was under this 90-day suspension from his post, still the minister of Mosque number 7, he violated that and he was out. And we got a report about Clarence on 125th Street selling all of his back papers, and he was not in the mosque. So I asked the captain, and the captain told me that he had another incident with his wife. Her name is
Dora.
I said Dorothy in one of my tapes, I believe, but Dora and him had an incident, and the captain said I had to dismiss it. This is what Captain Shaw told me, that I repeated over and over again in my talks on the 5%. And it was his second incident, which meant that he got more time than the first time. Now, if you interview other people, they may give you a perspective. My perspective comes from what was said by Captain Yusuf Shah. I didn't write the reports. I was not an investigator. I didn't talk to Clarence about it. But this is what was told to me by Captain Yusuf Shah. And the brothers who could, most of them who could verify it, one of them lived here in Atlanta, Georgia, where we are now, and he passed away, was Richard 8X, because he was an assistant lieutenant at that time, and Clarence 7X, who was our first lieutenant, could have verified it through those two brothers. And I'm trying to think whoever else is living that could verify it, probably Captain Amina Rasul, who was Clotel X at the time. She lives in South Carolina, but being that it was involving a sister and a husband, she may be able to recall. She's up in age. But somebody who was one of the officials at that time, okay? I was an assistant minister, but I wasn't involved in the investigation of any violation of rules or regulations in the mosque at that time. So that's what I was told. And Shaw, in my opinion, had no reason to tell other than the truth about Clarence. I mean, he just didn't have that reason. He had problems with what Clarence was doing because if he wanted to get papers, you know, we don't have no problem with brothers who are out selling papers, but we did have a problem sometime with brothers selling back papers to our people, and the people complaining to us, I brought a paper and the paper was 2 months old from one of your brothers. We used to have this complaint in the 60s, okay? And brothers had to try to sell their papers, so Shah's answer to that is whenever you're selling a paper and it's a back paper, let the people know that this is an old edition, but there's a lot of information in it. And they felt that Clarence was not doing that.
Right. And I think to a statement you just made, when I interviewed different people, I think everybody was sincere in their answers, but for whatever reason, all of the different accounts that they gave conflicted with one another. Like I interviewed Sister Dora 3X Smith, Brother Clarence 13X wife, and I asked her about, you know, this alleged incident, whether it ever happened. And she's like, well, of all the things my husband would ever did anything, he would have never ever hit me. That's one thing he never ever did because of the respect and the reverence that he had for women, I guess that he got from his mother. So I don't deny that account that came from Captain Yusuf Shah, as I don't deny the other accounts that brothers and sisters have given, including 5%ers, including family members. But everybody has given a different account for whatever reason. Now, to that, I do have a theory. And you may have just shot a hole in that theory, because my theory was that when he left the temple, I don't think he was a notable or a noted figure in the temple, as if you would miss Brother Clarence after he was expelled, after he left on his own accord. So afterwards, as time passed on, he became this figure in New York City that was the head of a movement that people attempted to recollect exactly what happened. And I think that's why the different various accounts. So that's kind of one of the things that's still left out there, because everybody has a different account. Right. But I think the good thing is that you verified that you got that information directly from Captain Yusuf Shah, who surely enough was the captain over number 7. But again, it's just a different account versus what others have given. But speaking in line with that, so when Brother Clarence left Temple number 7, he went back out into the Harlem community. And only a short time passed before he started teaching some of the young brothers in the neighborhood. And the main thing that he did was he taught them to study and master and be able to recite the supreme wisdom of the Nation of Islam, which was a taboo in the Muslim community at the time, because those lessons to this very day are only for registered Muslims only for those people who receive their X. So what I want to ask you is, when he started teaching the lessons and it came to the attention of the Nation of Islam, did they have a problem with brother for doing that? Was there animosity? Did anything occur as a result? Do you recollect any of that?
Absolutely. The lessons given to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time were for the internal use. And we felt that these were, it's like in the Masonic order, these were our internal business, and it's not shared with the general public in such way, and that he was violating things in the nation. And brothers and sisters had a problem with what he was doing. There's no doubt about it. And then he was giving it to children, very young children, who didn't have a level of understanding about the lessons. And if you don't have that level of understanding, then it could cause you to do things by what is written in those lessons that may not be, proper. And so we had a problem with it because there was nobody to explain, and we didn't know how deep Clarence 13X's knowledge of the lessons and the hidden meaning behind some of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us. So there was problems with that. Nobody agreed, well, it's good what Brother Clarence is doing, and let him go on because he's going to spread this among young people. Nobody agreed like that within the Nation of Islam. So yes, there was a disagreement about it.
Okay. And also during that period of time when he came out of the temple, shortly thereafter, I think it was Memorial Day weekend of May 1965, he was arrested for allegedly a public disturbance. Then he went up to Bellevue, and ultimately they shipped him off to Mattawan. And he stayed there for a couple of years until the end of March or early April 1967. And then he came back out. And when he came back out, one of the things that he noticed is that he may have started from a few 5%ers, but over the course of time while he was incarcerated, the other 5%ers taught more young brothers and sisters. So when he came home, there was, hundreds of 5%ers, they say. And they talk about how he established the Universal Parliament in April of 1967. It was the first of its kind when the brothers went to Mount Mars Park in Harlem, now known as Marcus Garvey Park. And the father, Allah, Clarence 13X, had a Universal Parliament in which he had all these 5%ers there. And as a young 5%er, when I was coming up, I always heard about this first parliament, and I always heard about there was a Muslim or a group of Muslims who approached the father, and they had a debate between themselves. And of course, in my research, I found out that you're the very said individual that was there at the first Universal Parliament that was representative of the FOI or the Nation of Islam, or you probably went on your own accord. So I want to know, one, how did you end up at the Universal Parliament, under what set of circumstances?
And it's the question is the question that I answer or talk about whenever I'm talking on the 5%ers or doing the history of Mosque number 7. I was managing the restaurant for Captain Yusuf Shah. And one Sunday, Minister Farrakhan, at that time, we were meeting in the Bronx. And he knew that I had always been an assistant minister under Malcolm when he first came to New York, and I was working with him at first. Circumstances, I ended up helping with the restaurant and using some of my management skills to manage the restaurant. And so the minister asked me, would you open up for me today in the Bronx? I want to get you back on the roster. And I said, of course, brother minister. So I put on my FOI uniform. I came to the restaurant to make sure everything was straight. And Yusuf Shah comes in and asks me, where was I going? Because I wasn't dressed like I was working in the restaurant. I said, I'm going up to the Bronx to open up for Minister Farrakhan. He said, well, Brother Larry, you got to make a decision. You cannot manage the restaurant and work on the roster. You know, you got to choose between one and another. And my heart and passion was for teaching. And I had to think about it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even go up to the Bronx, I don't think, that day to open up. I don't think I went. But what I did is I walked up to the park while I was thinking and praying over it. And I walked up to the park and I walked up to the hill. At the top of the hill, I saw it may have been 500 or 600, but I said it looked like 1,000 people, young people. And when I walked up in the FOI uniform, the young people opened up a path, and there was Clarence. And I gave him the greetings. He had a baby in his arm and a cigarette in one hand. And the first thing I said to him is, you know, so Clarence, I mean, how are you teaching these young brothers that you are Allah? And you're standing there with a cigarette in your hand. And he said to me that Allah is not bound, fixed by anything. Allah must master all things. And the whole crowd said, oh, praise is due to Allah. Then he went on to say to me that I am the one. I've been shot with an elephant gun through the heart, and I lived, you know. And they said, oh, praise is due to Allah. Then I told him, I said, well, Clarence, time is a test of all men and all ideas. And time will tell who you are. And they opened up. We may have had a few other words. Right now I can't recall. But they opened up a path, I turned, and I left. And I remember clearly, I had no fear that the brothers would jump on me. I just didn't think they were going to do it. But what I was pained by is two things. One, that these were all of his disciples. He just came home, they were happy to see him, and the myth around him, and that he stood there with a cigarette. That bothered me. The second thing that bothered me, he was naming a baby. And I think they even said the name of the baby. He had a child that he was naming because one of the young men or women, the women had the baby for one of the young men. And I was thinking about that thing. And then when he mentioned about he was shot one time and that you know, he was the one, in other words, I am God, that's a kind of thing that would hurt and damage these young people. But also, I said, now I don't know what happened to him after, but shortly after that, maybe it was 2 years after that, right? Mm-hmm. That he was killed. And I have said many times that one of the young boys in the crowd who wanted to prove and show that he was Allah may have been the one that put those 7 bullets in him, okay? Mm. And only those that did it know the truth of it. Right. But I know that the Nation of Islam was accused of having something to do with the same thing with Charles 13X. And right. When he was shot, we were always the ones accused. And when you have this kind of thing going on, where someone leaves an organization, forms something away from that organization that is really against the principles of that organization, and he was one, you always have this. Right. I mean, so at that parliament, I think that, and shortly after that, he's killed. And I'm the one that said that one of the young brothers in the crowd may have wanted to show and prove that he was really Allah, and he wanted to test it out. And I don't know what the police said, who did it, and so forth, but that's what happened on that particular day. And right after that, I'm working in the streets of Harlem, and I would see him. I would see him with a cigarette. I would see him shooting crap around 132nd Street and 8th Avenue, and that's where his little home area was. He would be out there shooting craps, and I would see him at a store that was on the corner of 8th and St. Nicholas, I think it was, where we used to go to get coffee. So I used to see him. He would wave to me, or I'd say salam alaikum, and we go on, but we never got into a debate in the streets that we went back and forth over what he was doing, and he knew that I disapproved because I felt that I said, Clarence, what you're doing with these young boys is not correct. And when I would go to the prisons and I would see those same young boys that I knew as children that would come up to me and remind me, I lived on 118th Street. I was the brother on 100 that used to come to you and talk to you about the lesson. And most of them were in there because they had got busted with heroin or selling heroin or using it, whatever it was the case that they were in jail. So that disturbed me because Clarence, if he was in the street and he was going to do the good that he could by using the lessons, then he should have also used the principles that he learned inside of the Nation of Islam, of disciplining yourself from those kind of things.